Gelikas Lahamas Salo Glasley. They'll go up over the guys to lock a quick suit to the Khwatmis, Muskabog, Zawdeno. Gelikas Lasley went to Squatmish, Buskfield, like Yuktabas, Wheelamig is done what call it. My traditional name is Owadi. I'm here today as in my role as the Vice President of the Union of BC Indian Chiefs. I would like to thank the Raging Grannies for your song. Very nice to hear your voices. And I want to recognize everybody that has taken time out of your weekend on a beautiful fall Saturday to come here and stand, to stay, that your opinion, your concerns matter. That we are facing a provincial government and a federal government that have lost sight of democracy.
Yeah.
I know that all of us here, I'm not sure if I need this. Everyone here can agree on some basic things. Oxygen, water, food. And when I think about democracy, I know that here in Canada that we want to believe that there is one law for all Canadians. And that law is to be just and impartial. And that law is supposed to give guidance to the federal and provincial governments as well. And this is where the democracy in Canada is failing every one of us that stand here today. They have gutted environmental assessment processes. So what happens is the certifications that come out of these shams of process are meaningless. They do not meet and look after the environment as various pieces of federal legislation give direction to the federal government to do. They are letting you down. They're letting me down. And they continue to do this. And there's been such a misuse of democracy with the Stephen Harper government with the various omnibus bills that have been passed. And so when we go to vote and we decide to cast our ballot on October 19th, I want everybody to remember on October 20th, October 21st, November 12th, February 26th, that we have to keep vigilant, that we can't turn our attention away from the behavior and actions of government. Because they are our government. They're not some group of people locked up in a kingdom somewhere. They are our representatives. And so it's incumbent upon every one of us to make sure that our concerns, our beliefs, and our understandings are heard loud and clear. And I've said this before, how many people have a phone in their pocket?
Got a phone.
This is how we're going to get the message out. We cannot rely on mainstream media to get our message out to the people. Mainstream media, and has been my experience. I've given some wonderful speeches. I mean, really wonderful speeches. And they use about 5 seconds of it. That's how we fall prey to the media. So we must take control of that message. And that begins with our family. And it begins with what is our community and our circles of influence. And we must continue on with the messages. Because what we have now is a government that has come up with a definition of sustainability that does not meet the needs of our people, that does not meet the needs of the environment.
Right.
And so this is what we must attack. We must ensure that we have a balanced representation within government that looks out for our interests, and we must make every possible noise and every possible opportunity to ensure that our voices are heard time and time again. I mentioned the one law for all Canadians and one law for the government of Canada. I'm talking about the Supreme Court of Canada. I'm talking about the Constitution of Canada. These are some of the very key and fundamental building blocks of a democratic society. And what we have now is a federal government and a provincial government that has shown time and time again a complete and utter disregard for the rulings of the Supreme Court of Canada towards First Nations people. We have seen time and again the disregard that they have for Section 35(1) of the Canadian Constitution. And this is when I want everybody to understand, when you see First Nations standing up, when you see us gathering to protect our territories and our resources, we are protecting the lands who we come from. We have a very special relationship with the lands. It's not a place to maximize a profit line on a spreadsheet in an annual report for your stakeholders. It's about a place we come from and a place that we will never, ever be leaving. And the Supreme Court has recognized that in the Chilcotin decision. It talked about wanting First Nation governance to make sure that they have decisions that reflect the needs of multiple generations to come. And that must be incumbent upon the Canadian government as well. And I was very fortunate that I paddled the Peace this year. Woo-hoo! Wonderful experience. And did anybody see those pictures of Dave Suzuki making the big rescue? Those are my pictures. I just happened to be cruising by. But in all honesty, it was Regional Chief Shane Godfredson and Grand Chief Stuart Phillip that were one of the first on the site. Dave just happened to get in for the glory. But I was astonished when we were finished to go up on the hillside and to see just how much of this incredible lands are going to be laid to waste underneath water. Yeah. And I did a little bit of reading, and so it's going to be 100 kilometers long. That's the distance from Nanaimo to Victoria. Yeah. It's going to be 1,500 square kilometers, about the size of Winnipeg. This is the kind of information everybody must hear, and we start to conceptualize it, and for us to get offended, and for us to stand up and to make sure that the voice of opposition, the rational voice looking out for the environment, is loud and clear.
Yes. All right.
I've been very fortunate to sit with the leadership of the Treaty 8, the First Nations up in the Peace River area. And I've often thought about, when have they given enough to this economy? Yeah. There are already 2 dams up there. There's already mass pieces of their traditional territory that they hunted, they gathered, they caught fish, that they can no longer do that. So it would be akin to having a traditional territory here in Vancouver, and all of a sudden you can't be going out to East Vancouver to get your food. And all of a sudden you can't be heading out to Richmond to get your food, you have to go out to Chilliwack. This is the progression of infringement on the rights of the First Nations people up in the Treaty 8 area. They've been very clear. The Supreme Court of Canada is another place where there's been very clear statements and direction to the Canadian government and the provincial government. It speaks about reconciliation, reconciling the underlying Aboriginal title to lands with the presumed sovereignty of the Crown. And so what the Supreme Court has identified recently with the Chilcotin decision, that Aboriginal title does exist in the territorial form. And so when a nation speaks about its territory, it is absolutely justified to do so. And when it demands to have reconciliation with the Crown, it is the highest court in the land that's giving direction to the Crown. And it is their disregard for the law of Canada which ensures that wonderful people such as yourselves gather. And to let it be known without any misconception about how we are offended by the patterns and behavior of the federal and provincial government. We have a treaty. Now when you think about that, if I'm going to make a treaty with any one of you, I'm recognizing you have something. And you're recognizing that I perhaps have something. And so now in this political landscape of Aboriginal title, how can the Treaty 8 First Nations not hold title? Yeah. The Crown has entered into a treaty, a sacred treaty with this group of First Nations, recognizing they needed a measure of document in order for them to successfully access resources. But I know for fact, when I've talked with Chief Roland Wilson and other leadership from up there, the government has not fulfilled its duties. It has not lived up to the very laws of this country in how they have engaged with the First Nations people. This is Canada's shame. It's a perpetuation of the racist foundation of this country. As many of you probably have read about or heard the term terra nullius, and that's what our visitors called our lands, which means empty, vacant lands, like we weren't there. And it was like, who was it that showed them where to fish and how to hunt? You know, they were sick and they're on their boats and they're a little bit lost, and our people took them in and kind of showed them around the neighborhood, so to speak, and how to get through a winter. And yet they have the nerve to turn around and say that we're not people. And I know that's a hard word, I think, for most Canadians to hear about racism and the racist foundation of this country, but it's real.
It's good.
The doctrine of discovery. I encourage everybody to Google that. And you will see how Canada has gone astray from the very beginning. I know that we all heard of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission report that just came out recently. And it talks about the appalling situations of what Canada has hoisted upon First Nations people. And this is a perpetuation. This is where the doctrine of discovery says that we were not even fully evolved and never had culture, never had societies. It's alive, and I'm here to tell you, it's alive and well to this very day, down the street in the federal courthouse, in all the cities across Canada, because they still have that position that we are not people, that we have to demonstrate that we own the land at the time of presumed crown sovereignty. And so the racist foundation of this country is doing well. It's alive, it's here. It's our target to tear down. It is how we will come together, about how we will make sure that we understand one another's hearts, that we can have a place of respect for one another. In our language, I call it, it's duplassen, is when we're lifting each other up. And then we can come and we can share our vision for the future. And we can demand the government make decisions which make sure that what we enjoy today is going to be there for the generations that are yet to come. Now, the Union of BC Indian Chiefs, we have a membership of 110 First Nations. We have numerous resolutions from the Chiefs Council supporting the Treaty 8 First Nations in clear opposition to Site C Dam. This is why I'm here today. I believe in the work that each one of you are doing. I look for ways to fulfill the direction of the Chiefs Council from the Union of BC Indian Chiefs to make sure that it's heard everywhere, that we stand united with the Treaty 8 First Nations. We stand united with our brothers and sisters who want to see a true measure of sustainability for the territories. And if you haven't paddled treaty yet, if you haven't paddled the peace yet, I really encourage it, because it's super amazing. It's a wonderful little journey. So I want to thank the coordinators for this gathering, for allowing me to speak, and of course, it took me a few minutes longer to get to my points than I normally do.
Oh, you did good.
Such is the life of a politician with a microphone.